So, Steam Next Fest. I know this video is kinda late, but we do what we can do with the time we have. I don't usually pay much attention to Steam Next Fest. I mostly make a mental note of it if a game that I'm kinda already interested in puts a demo out for it. But for some reason this year I felt like I should check it out properly and maybe see if I could find some games I hadn't heard before. I had this huge list of games that I was checking out, and originally this video was gonna be about all the games I played, but eventually I decided to only focus on the ones that I actually wishlisted after playing the demos, mainly because otherwise this video was gonna turn out too long, and on top of that I figured it wouldn't be all that interesting to go into some games just to say, it's not really my thing. So here we are. This video is gonna be a little different from the ones I've done before. So this may feel a little scattered or something compared to other videos I've made, but we'll see. Some things to keep in mind. I try my best to check for if the games had a warning for generative AI content, and I like to say that for the most part I checked everything, but there might be still one thing or other that slipped through, and if that's the case, I apologize in advance. And another thing to keep in mind, which I'm gonna say mostly because I'm paranoid about the internet, I'm only really looking into these games as much as the Steam pages and the game itself. I'm not looking into who the developers are outside of what Steam gives me. If there's any kind of controversy involving anyone, I do not know anything about it. I'm just looking at the games themselves. I am not looking into who the developers are. I don't know if they are good people. Don't come for me. Anyways, let's get started. Vampy's Big Day. This is one I had already heard of before because I ended up running into the developers' devlog videos on YouTube, and it looked like a cute game. And actually I had already played this demo before the Next Fest, but I had been under the impression that the Next Fest had given a bigger update to the demo, but in the end the Next Fest demo was just a cosmetic thing rather than a super major update, so I basically just played the same demo again, but it was still fun, it's still cute, I didn't mind it. So basically this game is about you're a little vampire banished from vampire society, but who then gets help from a sun fairy. As you play through the game, you can choose to either be more pacifist or be more violent, and there's a lot of stealth and sneaking around involved. One major problem I do have with this demo is that the game window doesn't have a window slash, the box window thing around it, so I cannot move the window around my desktop, so like I cannot change where it's positioned on my display, which is a little inconvenient. Thankfully the default spot that it goes to is one that isn't too bad for me, but it's still something I would rather not be like that. Although I kind of mistakenly replayed the demo that I had already played, it wasn't all bad, because the first time I had played it I had a kind of hard time getting used to the mechanics and the moving around and stuff. I was kind of confused on how to do things. I wasn't very good with the fairy controls or with the sneaking around part, but replaying it I realized it was just a matter of getting used to the controls and realizing that sometimes it's not so bad to take a bit of a leap of faith and take a little bit of damage between shadows if it means quickly getting to safety. The first time I played I ended up unable to be 100% pacifist because I couldn't get past an animal without it killing me, so I had to kill it or else I would die. But on the second run I managed to truly not kill a single thing, so I imagine the full game is gonna be quite fun to replay and try doing better runs each time. Knee deep in love. Okay, right away, one thing you have to know about me as we get into the visual novels of this video. I really like yandere, guys, games in like animanga, so usually seeing the word yandere for a game when I was looking through potential demos to play immediately piqued my interest. May underestimate me go feral in a good way. Literally my favorite route in the game Amnesia Memories is the guy that puts you in a cage who causes bad ends even in other routes. I love the trope. Anyway, knee-deep's concept is that you suddenly get a suspicious app on your phone telling you that each of the love interests is willing to kill for you, which naturally the protagonist is concerned about, of course. But even before that, you can tell there's certain red flags going on with each of the love interests. Milo is your childhood friend who is overprotective to a concerning degree. Riley is your partner for an art project who very clearly has been keeping an eye on you from afar before this. And then there's also your roommate Anthony, who doesn't talk much and generally feels suspicious. Accusing his ranked as being the most sane in the weird app. And there's also an unknown guy. The demo includes an introduction chapter as well as a glimpse of the route splits. To me, the character that most caught my interest was Riley. I don't know, there's just something about how he looks very sweet and shy and genuinely seems to enjoy your company but then just drugs you. Something about him just scratches my brain very nicely. But I did also like Anthony and how despite him being the edgy looking one, who is the most closed off, he also seems to be the most chill out of the options. The worst he does in the demo is scare off an annoying classmate of yours. Riley is the most obsessed with you and he literally gets rid of Anthony and locks you up in your apartment. Although for whatever reason he makes me the most uneasy, I guess. The genre stalkery and possessive stuff he does isn't all that different from other yanderis I do like, so I don't know why with him specifically I just feel more wary than usual. Maybe it's the minor references to animal abuse that trip up into a bit of a squeak for me, but that's all just personal preference in characters rather than anything objective. And hey, the game's mature content disclaimer on Steam did mention animal cruelty, so I was warned. Maybe the full release will sell me on him a bit more and I might be able to look past that. I also think it's fun that the route selection screen has a none of them option, but that option basically just tells you that you're boring because you're not willing to engage with the game's premise. I do wonder if eventually that's gonna become the option that leads you to a locked route, since there is that unknown person on the list. Plus a lot of dating sims have a locked route, which for those unfamiliar with dating sims is a route that only unlocks once you've cleared each of the other route's good endings at least once before. In Amnesia Memories that would be Okio's route, and in Café Enchanted that is Messier's route, as some examples. There's also this mechanic where when you start the game where you pick which college courses you are going to for the week, which only seem to have pretty minor effect on the demo. It wasn't completely irrelevant, as digital art class does get acknowledged as being more related to a man art degree than the other options, so it's not just a word swap, but I do wonder if it's gonna be something to just add minor tidbits of information across different playthroughs, or if it's gonna be a more relevant mechanic in the full release. Though it's not a deal breaker for me if it stays as just a minor thing. Overall, I really enjoyed it, and I'm definitely keeping an eye out for the full release. I'm really intrigued to learn more about the story and the characters. There is no next stop. This particular demo was super short, only taking me like 15 minutes to finish, so there isn't much to say about it. But I did enjoy it, and I will be keeping an eye out for the full release. It's a horror game about how you get sucked into a weird alternative realm while you're in the subway. Kinda reminds me of the games from the RPG Maker horror era. Kernel Hearts. A roguelike game about magical girls trying to save the world from ashes as they fight enemies in a magical tower. Magical girls is one of my main interests, so it automatically had my attention. It's probably obvious that I like magical girls because I am the guy who is also obsessed with magical boys. So it's probably not hard to imagine I would like both genders of magical people. The demo lets you play up to the second floor of the tower. From what I understand, you can keep playing after you clear it for the first time because you do unlock a second character that you can play as. But from what I can tell, you're probably not getting to a third floor in the demo. The game recommends you play it on controller, but for some reason my computer wasn't recognizing mine, so I had to play it on keyboard. It wasn't too complicated aside from me taking a while to get used to the controls, and both my A and Shift key eventually decided to not respond to me at random moments. So if you see me suddenly standing still and that's a terrible fucking idea in my footage, now you know why. It's not that I'm stupid, it's that my keyboard decided to hit me at that exact moment. From what I could tell, the floors of the tower are always the same in each run, so I could see how you would eventually memorize each floor so well that your progress is more about your ability to be effective rather than your luck with the skills and equipment you get. I do also really like the introduction to the story. It's fun to piece things together bit by bit through talking to the NPCs, though obviously there's still a lot of mystery going on. As an example, I am still not 100% sure exactly what magical girls are supposed to be in this universe. There's a lot of stuff pointing to them being robots, or at least similar to robots, just as talking about backup data and upgrades, and heck, one of the NPCs straight up asks if you're a robot. But then there's also clear signs that these girls were children once. When doing one of the bonding events with the creator guy, he does say he had a sister who has a magical runt and died. Meanwhile, the current theme of magical girls seems to be able to come back each time they die at the tower, though before the start of the game they wouldn't retain their memories after being defeated. So my best guess currently is that the magical girls used to be one thing, but then eventually there was some research made to change how their powers work over time, though that's just my own speculations, so I am quite curious to see where it goes on the full release. This is the biggest game in matters of file size among the stuff I decided to check out, but it is 10 gigabytes, so it's still within my threshold of acceptable. I just hope the stuff that needs to be there for the full release doesn't make the file size balloon out of control. But I did enjoy it enough that I probably would be motivated to make space for it if it gets a little bigger than what I am used to. Pathotaxia Pandora. Another game that, looking at the Steam previews, reminded me of the RPG Maker horror era. And turns out it is made with RPG Maker MV, so I do seem to have clocked the correct vibes. Something I found odd was that there's apparently supposed to be some kind of introduction video, but I assume it isn't actually included in the demo, because when I played, it just looped the instructions for skipping the intro, and it only went away once I followed the set instructions, but the Steam description does give a pretty good introduction to what the story is. You play as Pandora, who has done some kind of ritual that got messed up, and now you need to take care of the demonic entities that came to be because of said ritual. And trying to solve this whole mess will end up leading to you finding out some messed up stuff about your family, including about your mother's disappearance. I did enjoy this demo a lot. I liked the usual shenanigans of having to figure out how to get past specific obstacles before you can progress, even though for the first one I was ever so slightly out of order because I always have the instinct to explore things before going in the direction that is more likely to progress the story. So I ended up talking to the sister character before I actually found out the door to where I needed to go was locked. But I felt that one was more on me than anything. And then for the second puzzle I struggled a bit, but only because I was a bit stupid and didn't realize I had gotten the thing I needed. The first text for the tile I interacted with was the exact same as the tiles where the thing I needed could not be found, so my eyes just glazed over the "you got the thing" test. I only realized that was why I got through the puzzle when I was rewatching my footage to figure out what the hell even happened, since I messed around with RPG Maker MV before, so I could maybe figure out where a programming mistake could have happened. But turns out, it was just my brain refusing to absorb information. This puzzle of the demo did make me feel really smart and like my instinct to over-explore things actually paid off. When you finally get to your dad's office, there's a safe that you need a 3-digit code to open. So of course the first thing you think to do is find anywhere that might have a number on it that might be related to your father. I didn't remember there was that picture of your dad and your grandpa in the hallway. I didn't remember there was a number on the picture, but it was my best lead after the newspaper in the office had 0 numbers in it. It's not a complicated puzzle, but I felt very proud of myself for figuring that out quickly. And to be honest, after realizing how I messed up the piano puzzle, I'll take any win I can get to feel smart. I did really enjoy the bits and pieces of the story that is already present in the demo itself, which will obviously get properly explained in the full game. Your sister is a mess and an alcoholic, but she does seem to care about you, or at least try to seem like she cares. There's also some magazines with pictures of herself on her bedroom floor, so I wonder if she is currently a model or if she's a former model. Either status will likely explain why she apparently tries to drink her pains away. There's this masked woman named Eloise, who I assume is like your dad's new wife or his mistress. She does seem to hate Pandora and her sister, and seems to have some level of closeness to their father, is at least infatuated with him. Maybe considering their dad owns the literal only bank in the country, she's only interested in his political power. Who knows how deep it could be. I also right away noticed the relationship between Pandora and her father was definitely not great, and letting her use the elevator without his permission could just be him being overprotective or secretive, but the moment the narration started referring to him by his name, Arthur, rather than as your father, I could tell something was up. And my suspicions were confirmed at the end of the demo where the narration calls him your pig of a father. I don't know, I like small details like that and I feel smart when I notice them. I could build up some expectations through watching the way Pandora interacts with the characters, and then the little cutscene confirmed that my impression of her dynamic with them was probably what the developers intended for them to look like. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the final version of the game and to see where all of this leads. It's definitely going on the wish list. The second reality room, Unspoken Truths. A visual novel about talking to puny people through their problems until the truth behind what their delusions actually mean is uncovered. It's basically an investigation game where you're trying to put together what the characters actually mean when they start seeing things no one understands properly. There's also a mechanic where you read their minds to look into how they see the world around them. I really like this one. The demo included both the tutorial chapter and the first proper chapter of the game. I thought I was going to screw up horrendously once I didn't have the tutorial hand holding me, since it's not uncommon for me to kind of fumble investigation games when it comes to like trying to get the game to understand what I have, figure out what is going on. But actually I didn't have enough fails to get me anywhere near in danger of losing. So I'd say it was fairly easy to understand. I really enjoyed the story itself too, with the truth behind these first two cases actually making me quite emotional since these were general topics that I could relate to, and the hook and preview for the third chapter did have me really curious to see more, so this one definitely went on the wish list. Cat Mail Co. A cute game where you work at a post office. Also everyone is cats. For the first few requests, I'd occasionally get a bit confused as to how to identify what package I was supposed to give to a customer, aside from just going for trial and error until they accept it, but maybe that's what was intended or maybe I'm just dumb. I generally had a really good time with this game. I really lost track of time as I tried to get all this stuff organized and was generally bummed out when the demo ended because you slowly find out more things you should be considering in organizing stuff, such as where their destination is or making sure the name of who it's going to is visible for ease of delivering them to customers. I really wanted to get to organizing the second round of packages that arrived into reorganizing my stuff so that the recipient names would have been more easily visible. So definitely went to the wish list. Really enjoyed the freedom to organize stuff however I wanted. Chinese Street Food Legend. A game where we run a Chinese food truck with quite a bit of story included. I ended up really enjoying the gameplay. It basically plays the same as Cook Serve Delicious, and it is very much kinda stressful as you try not to lose track of things or not misclick something. Even after I was done with the story content available in the demo, I kept playing until I had all the demo upgrades just because I wanted to see how much more smoothly I could get things to run. There's some pretty clear thematic connection between all the character stories, where a lot of it is about work and how you often get stuck with a job that isn't really what you want to do. Also, as a quick side note, you might notice there's occasionally some broken English in places, but there was no AI disclosure for this game when I was playing, so what I assume is the case is that the developers aren't 100% proficient at English themselves, or at least that's where I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. I did end up putting it on my wish list. It's another game that sucked me in quite a bit, so to me that's a good enough reason to keep an eye on it. LEVATE. I don't think there's any way to describe this one that would do it justice. It's a psychological horror visual novel that is quite atmospheric, to say the least. It starts off kinda slow, with the main character just kind of going through the motion of his daily life, but even just within the 10 to 15 minutes that were in the demo, it slowly gave me just enough information to make me curious. I can at least tell the protagonist seems to have witnessed a pretty fucked up event that left him with some deep guilt. Dawn Bell. Simple little horror game. Demo took me about 20 minutes to finish, though I feel at least 5 of those minutes were spent trying to get through a trap corridor and a puzzle that only made sense to me once I looked up the answer. Overall I like the vibes and the aesthetics, though I do wish the demo was a little longer to get a better grasp of what the story is supposed to be. It just kind of ends up right when things start getting a little more intense. I did actually get spooked by the little lizard that shows up on your screen once you leave the first room. That's okay, a little embarrassing. I was debating it at first, but I did end up deciding to put it on my wish list. And the time between when the next fest started and when I actually sat down to play this demo, the full game was actually released and the price is not too high. So I felt that once I have the money for it, it would be worth the pay if I want to get a little more into playing horror games myself rather than just watching other people play them. The Lost Land of Bahia, Blanca. An Argentine visual novel with a pretty cool aesthetic and also a really interesting story of political intrigue as you play as an old lady trying to find your granddaughter. I was very easily sucked into the vibes of this game and quite enjoying exploring all the options I had. I'm really curious to see how the full game will turn out and how your choices might impact the full story. House of Petals. A dating scene where you wake up with amnesia and interact with a sus guy who is supposedly your husband. You're essentially trying to figure out who you are and potentially get your memories back. It's marketed as a yandere ultimate game, and as I've said before, I am quite a sucker for male yandere, so that is a bonus. Does the fact that it's a yandere game already give away what the most likely answer to what is going on is that this guy killed your parents and found a way to erase your memories? Sure. But I am curious enough to see how everything else pieces together, such as what is going on with that ceramic doll, or figuring out how much of what he tells you is actually true or not. So, it's on the wishlist. Gossip and Potions. A game where you play as a witch setting up a new potion shop, and trying to figure out what potions to give to each customer according to their needs. Also, you have a talking head. When the game started, I took a while to realize that the head had sprites and that was talking to you, but it is really funny. I like him. I really like the art style and the general vibes. I enjoy listening to what each character had to say and trying to figure out how to make the potions I wanted. Although I was quite sleepy when I decided to play this, so my ability to think things through wasn't at 100%. I did eventually figure out that even though your head gives you suggestions on what potions to make, they aren't always the best option. For the first client, the potion I gave her following the instructions did fix her problem. But then from the second one I tried making something different, but she just accidentally broke the bottle and walked away. For the third customer, I also did what her head told me, and while the result didn't seem like a problem at first, the guy that sells you ingredients eventually told me that I actually kinda screwed him up and I felt so bad. Oh no, he was a cute guy, I don't want him to get captured by his vegetables. For the last client, who was a flying pig, I at first tried to follow the head's instructions, but seeing as the result potion was not something I thought would actually fix the problem, I scrapped that and made something different. Thinking now maybe instead of scrapping that potion I should have just finished it to at least have it in stock in case I needed it later instead of letting the ingredients go to waste. But maybe I remembered that for the full release. So overall a quite fun game and I wouldn't mind seeing more of it once the full release is out. Cyber Paranoia. A sci-fi stat raiser visual novel, where you're a girl who supposedly has some sort of mental condition undergoing some shady treatment that involves a very good-looking robot guy, and also the doctor forcing you to go through some weird treatment and taking away your memories. On the longer end of most of the demos I've played for this video, I had to do more than one sitting of it to finish even one run of it. Eventually you also start communicating with a neighboring patient. She seems to like the treatment there as much as you do, which is not much at all. I didn't really interact with her much because to be honest I was a little too focused on the cute robot. You also have occasional video calls with what the game calls your guardian. From context clues, I assume this is the protagonist's father, and he does not seem like a very pleasant person. Some of his dialogue actually got to me, like emotionally. It was not pleasant. It was not nice. I would say the only really major or relevant issue I had is that I just really don't understand how the robot status numbers on the treatment segment work. I can't tell what's going on with stuff like the treatment score or efficiency, as it seems whatever action you hover over shows a negative prediction, which makes choosing the next action a bit confusing. And then the prediction numbers never are what actually happens after the treatment choice is over. I don't know what's going on with that. it makes the game a little hard. I started off not wanting to do anything to this beautiful robot that would cause him to be suffering or uncomfortable, but after a few in-game days I realized that your mental score unfortunately gets a little harder to manage if you're just being nice to him all the time. So I started trying to balance a few things that would get his suffering score up with the nicer things that were going more into the affectionate route I was hoping for. I somehow managed to maintain my mental score at the minimum threshold without needing to pick any of the more severe options. Interestingly, the main menu also includes a strategy guide for getting different routes, which I think is quite neat. I never considered a game including that as a possibility, but it's interesting and pretty useful for a game that requires a lot of stats balancing. It means that you wouldn't have to rely on the chance of other people figuring out the specifics for each route and sharing it online. I have some story ideas that will likely work well as visual novels with more or less complicated stat systems, so that's a nice feature to consider. Overall, I enjoy myself quite a lot playing this one, so I'll be keeping an eye on it. I'm quite curious to see what the end result of the gameplay style I was going for would give me, or if my strategy would even be sustainable in the long run. So yeah, those were all the games I played through during Steam Next Fest, and that ended up going to my wishlist. There were a few games that I also played but didn't mention because I ended up just not wishlisting them, either because they were just not my thing or because I had some technical issue or other. But overall, I did enjoy exploring games like this. I did play quite a few things that I usually wouldn't have played, like the horror games or the more experimental stuff, so maybe I would do something like this again next year, I guess. Would depend on how I feel by then. But yeah, this was a fun time and I have no idea how to finish this video. Bye.